Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture. And coming up today, are WWE wrestlers afraid of copping backstage heat if they decide to stay at home for the ongoing global situation? I've also got Brodie Lee denying that his AEW character is a Vince McMahon parody. And Nick Aldis says that he wants to see Rusev in the NWA.
Plus, WWE have cancelled a long-term storyline, why AEW is working with Mike Tyson, and a potential career change for Renee Young. This is the news. But we start, randomly, this doesn't feel normal, with my story relating to WWE cancelling a long-term storyline. You might have seen this doing the rounds on Twitter last night. I spotted it and thought, oh, this is a juicy meatball. This comes from WrestleVotes, our good friends over on @WrestleVotes on Twitter, using their source for woo.
It's for what it's worth, mate.
Yep, I knew that. They tweet, I've been told there was a long-term major storyline that was to unfold over the span of weeks during the spring and summer, similar to the McMahon limo explosion or the Nexus Invasion debut that was put on hold due to the fact there is no fans in attendance. Crowd reaction plays a major part. Now, no word on this, whether or not this has just been cancelled properly, just completely written off, or potentially postponed, but this is tasty.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that they would be doing very well if they avoided another limo explosion, given what that did to stock prices back in the day and given where stock prices currently are. But yeah, like, long-term storytelling is something that WWE, or a lack thereof, is something that WWE are criticised quite frequently for, and fair enough, I think, for the most part. There's always exceptions, you know, the Otis and Mandy thing is like a medium-term storyline that's working pretty well and might progress into a long-term storyline in time, but it's not something they generally excel at. A lot of their booking is kind of just like show to show, and people change their mind and plans change, the old caveat with everything. But it's kind of exciting to hear a bit of big picture planning was going down. Now, the thing is with that big picture planning is that they could go into this meeting and come up with this awesome year-long storyline with twists and turns and bits and pieces. But then Vince could turn up to Raw like a week later and go, nah, scrap that, pal. So, you know, there's always a pinch of Vince to be taken with these things. But at the same time, I would love to see something cool. I think the Nexus storyline is a good example of something, actually, a long-term storyline that kind of got derailed because it started so hot and then John Cena just beat everybody. But I would love to see something like that done right, for sure.
Yeah, I know the unpredictability of WWE right now is arguably one of its strongest and weakest points at the same time. But yeah, I miss a week-to-week thing that really keeps you hooked. I just saw this morning, actually, on Squared Circle, a compilation of spectacular suplexes by Jason Jordan, and was reminded about Kurt Angle's illegitimate son thing, which was another like long-term storyline where Vince just at the last second went, nah, the other one from American Alpha, pal, 'cause it's funnier. There's so much potential in these sorts of things, and you sense that when they come up with these long-term storylines, rather than it being like, oh, the Rusev, Lana and Lashley thing did well last week, just keep doing it again. They do seem to have a plan for week to week to week booking. So hopefully this has just been postponed rather than full on cancelled, because yeah, it's something I would be more than interested in, and certainly it arguably makes it even better that when crowds come back, we can launch straight into something like this.
Yeah. Hopefully it's something good. Hopefully it's something big, and hopefully it's something that they don't just abandon after 3 months or even 3 weeks. Who knows? You never can tell with WWE creative. Anyway, speaking of WWE, let's move on to our next story here. We've all heard the thing about WWE saying, "Hey man, if you don't want to work during the ongoing global health crisis, you can just stay at home and there won't be any repercussions." Well, a new report from Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter suggests that perhaps that is being taken with a big old pinch of salt in the backstage area. Dave writes specifically about Sami Zayn here. He says that there is a lot of unhappiness from WWE higher-ups backstage that Zayn took the option to stay at home, put his health first, as I would do if I was in his goddamn shoes, stay at home. Although obviously nobody within the company can say that for a variety of reasons. Meltzer also wrote that and I'm just going to quote him here, "I know of several people in the company who are not comfortable about working right now, but were not able to take WWE up on the offer for job security reasons," and this was before all the firings. So the two pub names that have gone public as saying, "Nah, I'm not working," there might be more, but these are the two that have gone public, are Sami Zayn, who is no longer the Intercontinental Champion, but at the same time, you know, we spoke about this the other day, it's not necessarily punishment. You can't just have your belt off air for like a year. It's silly. The other one is Roman Reigns, who isn't mentioned on TV anymore, although he did show up in poster form at Money in the Bank. So, you know, man, it's all backstage hearsay, this kind of stuff. But it's easy to believe, I think. It's easy to understand that. Why in anyone's mind would you take WWE saying, "It's okay, pal, don't worry about, we won't bury you," or whatever? Why would you take them at face value after all they've done over the decades? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, a bit of talk backstage, interesting stuff. I could see this being the case.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's two things here, isn't it? It's, on the one hand, it's WWE, because WWE are infamous for punishing people for their own weird reasons, as you mentioned there. But also, it's just the business. You know, the whole thing is back in the day, people didn't want to go off with an injury and would wrestle through it because they knew if they were off, someone else would take their spot. That same sort of thing applies here. If they had an idea for a spot for someone, but that someone, you know, quite rightly, as you said, wanted to stay home to protect the health of themselves, their friends, their family, and what have you, then if it's a good thing or a good push that they want to give someone, they're not just going to sit around and wait for it. They're going to utilise it because that was always planned for that time period. So on the one hand, yes, it is WWE being the most WWE, but it's also the business in general, you know.
Yeah.
I sincerely doubt that if, you know, the Young Bucks and Hangman Page weren't so heavily involved in AEW, that they could waltz straight back into, you know, major storylines in AEW as well. I just think that's the nature of the beast, perhaps.
I think there's a bit of that, but my concern would be more repercussions when these people return and so forth. Like, I think it's impossible to criticise Sami Zayn. Like, I disagree profusely with anyone who thinks he's done the wrong thing here. Put your health first, put your family first, put your well-being before this silly little sport, man. Like, same with Roman Reigns. He's explicitly said that it's for his family and so forth. My concern would be these people returning and them going, "Hey, Sami Zayn, guess what? You are only on main event now and you're a jobber. Or we're not going to pay you more than your downside," or something like that. That would be my concern, but we'll have to see how this whole thing pans out.
Yeah, it's just a shame that it's taken people like Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, who's fairly untouchable in terms of, you know, WWE aren't going to suddenly go, right, 24/7 championship run for you, boy, when he comes back. And, you know, he's got his own reasons, of course, with his twin boys being born recently. And someone like Sami Zayn, is not going to struggle if they go, you know what, we're going to just bury you and bury you and bury you and run out your contract. He would still, even if they made him look like the biggest goof on TV, would walk into a job in any other promotion. And even if he was a good company boy and towed the line and said, you know what, against my better judgment, I'm going to carry on doing this, the next time a Saudi show rolls around and Sami Zayn pops up, he's still in the bad books, in the doghouse, so to speak. So, yeah, good for him. It's something, like we said, we speculated on happening when it was first announced, and it does seem to be the case.
Yeah, looks like it's going that way.
Right, let's talk a little bit more about Iron Mike Tyson, who of course is going to be involved at Double or Nothing for AEW, presenting the winner of the Cody versus Lance Archer match with the TNT Championship. And the reasoning behind why AEW is working with him, well, it actually goes back to last year's Double or Nothing event. Mike Tyson was backstage, mingling, getting to meet all the AEW talent. There's photos of him hanging out with the likes of Chris Jericho, Brandy Rhodes. He really enjoyed himself. According to Dave Meltzer on the latest episode of Wrestling Reserve Radio, Tyson apparently loved everything about going backstage at Double or Nothing 2019, which has led to this year's appearance. We talked a lot about this yesterday, the legacy of Mike Tyson within wrestling. I think, you know, people will, it's AEW nicking from WWE yet again. Look, it's Mike Tyson and wrestling. What's not to like?
Yeah, he's got an established thing in wrestling after the stuff with DX and so forth. Mike Tyson, a man with a very complicated legacy, but, you know, they will probably look to Mike Tyson as a guy who is a big name. He went viral with that crazy, scary, absurd Instagram thing the other week, and he's probably someone that can bring eyes to the product. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing who he knocks out, as we kind of discussed a little bit yesterday, because he's got to put hands on someone, right? You don't get Mike Tyson on your show and not have him like biff Kip Sabian in the face or someone like that. We'll see what pans out. We shall see what happens with that.
Chance on JR shouting, Tyson and Cody! Tyson and Cody! Any chance on that?
I think there's a very strong chance of that indeed.
Yeah, fair play, Hamlet called that.
Let's talk about Brodie Lee. New interview with Busted Open Radio. He is, of course, headlining Double or Nothing, facing Jon Moxley. He spoke during this interview with Busted Open Radio about, you know, the lines that have been drawn between his character and Vince McMahon. We've seen the, you're not the first out of touch old man who didn't believe in me. We've seen the sneezing thing. We've seen the steak wrap or whatever. We've seen all kinds of allusions, all kinds of lines have been drawn between Mr. Brodie and Mr. McMahon. On that matter, Brodie said the following. Luke, you can take it however you want. I happen to be a fan of mafia movies, so that's the way the character was portrayed for me. Like I said, I believe that the leadership style, the results speak for themselves. So people can take it whatever way they want. And trust me, I hear you. I hear everybody, but nothing was intentional. I have no reason to hate WWE, no reason to hate Vince McMahon, nothing like that, but you take it how you want. So ultimately, saying take it how you want, Brodie Lee doesn't give a damn what you think about drawing lines and stuff. He doesn't care. He's doing his character. If there are parallels there, there are parallels there. He's going to keep doing it regardless. I like that. I like the DGAF attitude towards almost anything, to be honest. So good for him.
Love Brodie Lee. Love the fact he's moved on and gone to AEW and he's already in a world title feud, but that is a load of bollocks. Of course it's Vince McMahon. Like, I get it, I get why he's saying that, and like you say, I agree with his stance on it all. But come on, this wasn't a one-off. This was clear. Like, all right, okay, mafia, you know, mafioso stylings, but it was like the first 2 or 3 skits were just like straight out of the playbook of Vince McMahon, and I would not be surprised if there's some sort of homage to Vince's role in Money in the Bank and his little scene that we had in that going forward.
We're going to see Brodie demonstrate a stunt or something for one of his goobers.
what I will say is, the first one I really enjoyed. Everyone enjoyed the sort of dig at him. The second one was a nice little jab. I think by the third time around, people were getting a little bit tired of it. And he's also moved on and kind of re-established himself as his own man now, his own character. We saw a little bit on Road 2 where someone was bothering some of his boys putting up posters, so he just beat the crap out of them. I like this character. It has, yes, connotations with Vince McMahon, but it's certainly not a direct knockoff. Let's just say that.
Yeah, for sure.
And let's talk a little bit about Renee Young, who could be moving into a different area of WWE. She has done obviously phenomenally well. Been with the company for, what, 8 years?
8 years, yeah. Mental.
I think you might have seen the one of the first things she ever did on WWE, on NXT, doing the rounds on Twitter yesterday. But she was speaking to Outkick the Coverage earlier this week and saying that she wanted to try her hand at some on-screen management. Saying, I would love to do that. I've always kind of wanted to dabble in it. One person I thought for a second, I was like, ooh, should we pitch a thing, was Elias. I thought it'd be really fun to manage Elias as his band manager or something. I could see Renee as a manager, you know.
Yeah, I could see it, man. Like, I often say that as a broadcaster, Renee, as like a presenter and so forth, Renee Young is far too good for WWE. She's bloody great. She's excellent at what she does. Not the best commentator. That didn't quite work out. But you don't know how these things, like the managerial role, will work until you give it a bash. So why the hell not, man? Why the hell not give her a chance to do something a bit different and flex her creative muscle? Maybe not Elias. I don't think Elias needs a manager. He's a really good talker.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. I think he's got a bit of a... He's got some chops on him there. But other people, you know, now they seem to be starting to lean towards that with MVP and Lashley. She could definitely do something with someone else who needs a bit of help.
Yeah, for sure. There are plenty of people who could use a manager. So, hey, why not? Let's give it a chance.
And also her thing on commentary was kind of tainted by the fact that Dean Ambrose was so heavily involved with stuff at the time, and she was torn between trying to commentate but also being Dean Ambrose's wife, and Corey Graves and the other commentary team didn't really help with that. It just sort of muddied the water, so I wouldn't take that. I think everything else she's taken to in WWE, she's been spectacular with, and we've seen her on like Talking Smack. God, that was a great show. So I think give her a shot. Why not?
Yeah.
And maybe a female wrestler could do with a mouthpiece. I don't know, but I'd be interested in seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give it a go. I'm going to race through this last story here, because later on the channel, our Andrew Pollard will have a video up. It's like an hour long. If you want to know stuff about Nick Aldis, you should really pay attention to that. It's a really good interview, really great stuff in there. Check that out on the channel later on. But Nick Aldis has also spoken to Post Wrestling. He's doing the rounds at the moment. Spoke about the prospect of Rusev coming to the NWA and said that you will not find a bigger Rusev fan than Nick Aldis. He would love to see him in the NWA, even if it's just for a short run, for a short period. He says it would be huge. Totally agree with him. I think Rusev would fit that environment like a glove, even though he's unlikely to be a free agent for long.
Yeah, he did his first stuff on Twitch, didn't he, yesterday, I think?
I think so.
And I sense maybe he'd probably be more inclined to go somewhere like AEW, but I mean, NWA is no bad thing. And yeah, you mentioned that. It's a great interview. Check that out later on today on the channel. And follow Andrew Pollard at Cultured Left Peg on Twitter, because he's organising loads more interviews going forward. So if you want to be in the know, and when he tweets out, if you want to know any questions being asked to whoever he's interviewing, make sure you follow him at Cultured Left Peg on Twitter. Great Twitter handle, that. Right, speaking of Twitter, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. First Twitter question comes from at The H Stands For on Twitter.
Hey. Good.
Who says, could you see Raw and SmackDown coming from Full Sail when crowds are allowed back in shows? This could bring back crowds and their reactions and limit any potential exposure.
Yes, I could. It would certainly be a less cavernous building. Well, I think when crowds return, people are going to be spaced out anyway, right? But obviously a smaller building represents less of a risk. I could absolutely see that happening. It'll be interesting in Full Sail though, because you could realistically only have, 50, 60 people in there if you're all spaced out and so forth. But it's better than nothing, as we found out. So,
yeah, my brain can't really adjust to what to expect. All I know is empty arenas, a slight level up with AEW with wrestlers, and then packed house. So I don't know what goes in the middle here. I've no idea what to expect. So why not? That could be interesting. Second question today comes from Misfit13666, who says, "Hi guys, do you think WWE should just drop to one man and one women's champion, having each brand alternate pay-per-views for a number one challenger? Might bring back some prestige to mid-card titles too."
I don't necessarily think so. I kind of like each brand having their own headlining wrestlers and so forth, because it protects the brand split. I like the brand split. I like people being on different shows and stuff. I wouldn't go back to the way of having like champions bounce back and forth and so forth. It's okay for the women's tag team titles because the division's a lot thinner, but I think things work quite well as they are.
Yeah, plus I think in the current state of affairs with Raw and SmackDown being on different channels, as much as they're doing this brand-to-brand invitational, or however you want to call the Wildcard 2.0 as Andy Murray dubbed it, good luck selling the opposite channel, saying, yeah, so our world champion's going to be on the other show but not on this one. Like, it's not going to work out, I don't think. So I think even if you had, the men's on one show and the women's on... Nah. It's a good idea, but it's just not feasible and not going to happen with WWE in the modern era, as things stand right now. Final question today, love this question, comes from Marcus, who says, with your love of Space Jam, my first movie at the cinema, yes, Marcus, who would star in a wrestling version of it? Rock, Cena are obvious choices, but what about an MJF?
That'd be really good. This is a really good question, but I've got a pretty obvious answer for it, I'm afraid. Chris Statlander. She's an alien. She can communicate with these aliens coming down to wrestle the world. Perfect. It's Chris Statlander, man. This is Galaxy's greatest alien, we're told. So there you go.
I think Braun Strowman, or certainly original Braun Strowman when he first came up, would fit in with the Monstars. I think he would really get on well. And I think I mentioned this yesterday. I think Marco Stunt would be a great one to have as someone who drinks that, that potion that Jordan makes for them.
Yeah,
go and watch
yeah.
the film. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or you've forgotten it, go and watch it. Go and watch it now. I'll wait. We'll wait to finish this news, right? Okay, right, there you go. Great film, isn't it? Congratulations. You know that when he gives him that juice, and then it's actually just like water, and it's just the fight was inside him all along. Marco stunt for me.
There you go, baby. There you go.
Also, Titus Worldwide and the Iconics, but that's just me. By the way, I was on a walk with the missus yesterday, to go completely off topic, and suddenly stopped walking, and she went, "What is it? What's the problem?" And I went, "What if they put the Intercontinental title on Titus and then the Iconics with the tag titles on Monday? If that happens, I'm quitting wrestling. It's never going to get better than that." So there you go. Right, let's move on to today's and finally. And this is not really a shocker. At WWE Vacant on Twitter, tweeted just a couple of days ago, "It's a true honour to once again be your WWE Intercontinental Champion. As a 12-time holder of the Workhorse title, I vow to work my very hardest to put on a show for each and every one of you. On a side note, this belt is beautiful. I haven't held this version yet." Of course, Vacant just missing out on the Raw Women's Championship this week, but great to see regaining a mid-card title, because it's been a while, and I really loved the work that Vacant did in WCW back in the day.
Yeah, good to see a return to form from one of the most decorated champions in wrestling history.
Tell you what, when we were talking about this yesterday, we were talking about how fast they're filling up the Hall of Fame, and it's probably good that they had a year off if they delay this year's till next year's, right? How long until they put Vacant in there?
It's only a matter of time, bro. I mean, the Hall of Fame's a gimmick anyway, right? You might as well throw Vacant in there, hailing from parts unknown. Why the hell not?
At least it'd be quite a short speech, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right, let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories. In fact, speculate in the comments about what the long-term storyline could have been at the WWE cancelled / postponed. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Later on today, WrestleCulture complete with a hashtag bloody good quiz. Lots to discuss this week. And then live 4 p.m. BST here on YouTube, myself and one of the Dadley boys and Phil Chambers will be previewing SmackDown, discussing, of course, who could take that Intercontinental Championship off Vacant if they can grab it away from Vacant's clutches. You can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions as well on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Happy Weekend because it's generic on a Friday. I'm sorry.
I'm going to drink so much gin again today. Not during the day, although. You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Iconics, which was arguably more important. You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Sent out a fire tweet yesterday showing how Charlie Caruso should have announced that Edge Randy Orton match. So go and check that out. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE, as I said. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.